My sister died this morning of a heart attack. She was only 23 years old. Now normally, this kind of thing is extremely upsetting. This is mostly due to the suddenness of a person leaving you behind. One day they are here in this world, and the next they are gone. For me, that wasn't upsetting. I already knew she was going to die for quite some time. What was disturbing was what happened last night. It was late, probably about 2 in the morning, and I was driving home from work. Work has been really busy lately. I didn't get off until about 1. On the way home, I generally take a back highway. It is a relatively straight road, and the cops never patrol that route, so I can usually go about 20 miles over the speed limit. The road itself, I would say, is creepy. Dead trees span the entire roadway, and there is no street or traffic lights, so the only form of light is from the moon. For the most part, the road is covered in a foggy mist due to the presence of a swamp about 500 meters away from the road. I have traveled this road hundreds of times, and I have never seen anyone on it. That is, however, up until last night. I was about halfway through the drive when I saw a woman standing on the side of the road. Concerned, I pulled over and got out of my car. As I approached the woman, I saw that she had long, gray, and fair hair that touched a small part of her back. She was wearing a black dress that was dirty and tattered at the bottom. As I got closer, I called out to the woman, but no response. As I got even closer, I called out again. This was when the woman started to slowly turn around. As the woman turned around, my stomach dropped. The woman's face appeared haggard and dirty. Scars, moles, and discoloration filled her pale face. Her eyes were blacker than the night that surrounded her, and they gazed right through me. Her lips were drier than the Sahara and were filled with cracks of dry blood. They formed a smile. I stammered backwards as the woman took a step forward, the stench of her clothing finally reaching me. The only thing I could compare it to was the stench of a long, decomposing body. The frame of her body was small and frail. The dress she was wearing was covered in what appeared to be fresh blood at the front. She stood there for several seconds before lifting her bony finger and pointing it at me. She then gave off a blood-curdling scream that felt as if it shattered my eardrums. She continued for around 10 seconds. Once she stopped, she muttered something and began to walk off the highway and back into the swamp. I didn't follow her, obviously. I got into my car and took off as fast as I could. I knew who she was and why she was there. I've seen her before. I first saw her when I was 6. I remember waking up late at night to a tapping on the window. I opened my blinds to see the very same woman, not a day older or younger, staring at me from outside. She stared at me for several seconds before mimicking the same wail that she used last night before vanishing into the night. The next morning, my father died in a car accident. As far as you can tell, I've had a very grim life. I saw her again when I was 14. I was walking home from school in December. I live in Canada, so this meant I was walking home in the dark. I saw her from across the street. Same dress, same smell, and same eyes, and once again, the most horrendous sound vocalized from the depths of her body. The next morning, my uncle hung himself in his garage. At 19, she appeared again with the same routine. You can probably guess what happened next. I spent years researching this woman. Who was she? Why was she following me? What did she want? Finally, I believe I have found the answer. Western culture calls it a banshee. Her purpose is simple. Her presence is accompanied with a blood-curdling scream, and there is a message. Someone close to you has died, or is going to die. You can't stop it. The fate of the doomed person is already sealed with the cry of the banshee. Banshees are usually attached to families, and specifically to one individual person per generation. An omen. Banshees are apparently harmless physically, or so I've been told. I don't believe this part is entirely true. See, there is one thing that I forgot to tell you. When the banshee muttered something, I understood what it said. Being deaf in one ear has forced me to read lips most of my entire life. This comes to why I am writing here, and why I am so terrified. I need your help. You see, the banshee muttered 2 words. You're next. This is a story my dad told me of his first-hand experience. Short and so sweet it is. My dad was 18 or 19 at the time with 2 other mates. They drove to some rural pub in town. One mate was called Bert. He told my dad that night that he didn't feel too good. I was just gonna stay in the car for a bit. So my dad and his other mate went into the pub anyways. This was around 9 p.m., After getting lashed and forgetting about him being left in the car, he went out around 11 p.m. to check on him. He looked inside, and Bert was in the middle of the back seat, when previously in the front seat. Also, he was bolt straight up, with tears streaming down his face, in a trance-like state. My dad tried to open the door, but it was locked. Next, he tried to snap him out of the trance by yelling, "Bert, unlock the door, please." It's important to mention that Bert was the only one who had keys to the car. Bert finally opened the doors and immediately said, "Did you hear that?" "Hear what?" said my dad. Bert quickly replied, "Take me home," not breathing and breaking his stare out the windshield. So they drove home, and Bert was not saying a word. My dad was asking what happened, but he wouldn't reply. I guess that Bert didn't want to stress him out. So he just dropped him off at home, and Bert left without saying a word. The next day, another friend asked Bert why he was so freaked out last night. He said that this black figure of a woman stood in front of the car. She came flying up to the windshield face to face with him, giving off a deathly scream. Its mouth was so large and open it was inhuman. Its eyes were terrifying and black. After the blood-curdling scream, she, or it, just stared at him for a few seconds before flying off. He moved seats to feel less exposed. The next day, Bert found out that his uncle was pronounced dead at around 11 p.m. that previous night.